And Marcus, one of our top stories, of course, gas supplies to Europe, this amid the ongoing crisis in Ukraine.
Yes, indeed. Now, Russia's President Vladimir Putin, he has said that Russia has no plans to halt gas deliveries to Ukraine or Europe for that matter. But he reiterated that Gazprom could ask Ukraine to pay for its Russian gas supplies up front. Putin may be trying to ease concerns that European supplies could be hit if Russia turns off the taps to Ukraine. On its end, meanwhile, the European Commission has called on Russia as well as Ukraine to honour their commitments. Delano D'Souza has more.
Russia's gas exports to Ukraine are once again back in the spotlight. This after renewed fears that Ukraine's unpaid bills of $2.2 billion could see potential supply disruptions. Gas from Russia currently provides around half of Ukraine's supplies and accounts for 30% of Europe's gas needs. Moscow's latest attempt to further cripple Ukraine's economy has revived fears of gas disruptions over price in 2006 and 2009. During the latest disruption in the dead of winter in 2009, supplies were cut off to Ukraine for 13 days. This action also impacted other countries in Southeast Europe, including Bulgaria and Slovakia. This time around, Europe says its current gas supplies are at a comfortable level.
Gas storage in the EU is currently at a comfortable level. There are around 37 billion cubic meters of gas in the EU's underground storages, and this is nearly half of the capacity we have.
Ukraine estimates its gas supplies would last between 3 to 4 months. Purchasing reverse gas from Europe, as it did in January 2009, are one of the country's options.
If Ukraine buys gas from Europe, it will be $100, $150 cheaper compared to the price Gazprom is offering. If Gazprom will continue this policy of offering political rather than economic prices, it will lose the Ukrainian gas market, which represents the second largest market after Germany.
Experts say Russia is unlikely to do anything to jeopardize its exports to Europe that account for 70%. Just in case it does, the EU stands ready.
Angela Merkel says she believes there's untapped potential in Greece. The German Chancellor met with young Greek entrepreneurs during a one-day visit to Athens earlier. Merkel travelled to Athens to show support for the Greek government and its policies, and she said its tough economic reforms are paying off. The Chancellor arrived one day after the Greek government returned to international bond markets for the first time in 4 years. Many Greeks blame Merkel for pushing tough austerity reforms on Greece. Ahead of her arrival, protests had been banned in parts of Athens. Let's listen in.
After all the necessary reforms and all the structural reforms that will be necessary in the future, Greece is acquiring more opportunities than difficulties, despite the fact that there is high unemployment and people cannot perhaps see the growth that is underway yet.
Angela Merkel asking Greeks there to hold on. We're going to take a look at the stock markets next, and European shares closed lower on Friday, with the DAX shedding the most out of the main indices, down almost 1.5%. European stocks, they were playing catch-up after a sharp sell-off of technology shares in the United States on Thursday. Speaking of the United States, in the US this session, we're seeing more red. Banking shares in particular are hard hit at the end of the trading week. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is currently down 0.5%, so it's not as sharp a sell-off as we saw on Thursday. Still, though, as I say, we're seeing those indices on Wall Street in the red. And if we take a look at some individual company news and at why banking shares in particular are losing steam in the US, shares in America's biggest bank are under pressure over on Wall Street. It comes after JP Chase reported a 19% drop in first quarter earnings. The bank posted a profit just shy of $5.3 billion for the January to March period, and that was below expectations. The bottom line was hit by lower revenues from bond, currency and commodities trading. The story is different at JP Morgan's rival, Wells Fargo. Its first quarter earnings surged 14% to $5.6 billion. The bottom line was boosted as the lender said it's losing less money from mortgages turning sour. Shares in Wells Fargo, which is America's biggest mortgage lender, have been trading higher on Wall Street, unlike JP Morgan Chase shares. And France's Prime Minister has started sensitive talks with unions and employers' organizations. Manuel Valls is pushing his government's flagship policy to make it cheaper to do business in France. The so-called Responsibility Pact would lower payroll taxes and other charges for businesses by 30 billion euros. In return for their agreement, unions are asking companies to agree to binding pledges to increase hiring, and that is one of the main sticking points for now. And Samsung has started selling its latest flagship smartphone to consumers. The Korean company is hoping that the Galaxy S5 will help to put its profits back on track and basically be more successful than Apple's arch-rival, the iPhone. But some analysts say that the Samsung Galaxy S5 may be lacking the wow factor needed to get customers to stores. Earlier this week, Samsung warned that its earnings are set to fall as consumers spend less on their smartphones. Okay, that is the business news for now. I'll be back in an hour and a half with more business headlines. Back to you, Francois.
All right, many thanks, Marcus Carlson. In sports, the big story, of course, the draw for